we're going to hop over to the Microsoft press conference, where we have a couple Xbox gamers here. So this one will be quick because I'm going to avoid it. But no, the big news this year with Microsoft is that they are supposedly coming out with new Xbox systems, Xbox Ones. They're coming out with a slim version and coming out with an upgraded GPU. So that's going to be that is supposedly their big reveal. So the first question is, do they reveal both of them this year, or do they only reveal the slim? And if they do reveal both, what the hell is the incentive to even getting the slim?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to unveil the new one until probably next winter. Because, yeah, the slim, they've got to, incentivize people to buy that. And if people know there's a new unit coming out, then why buy the slim? And, that's...
Yeah.
I think that would be very smart. And also, aren't they supposed to come out like a Google Stick type thing for, like, media streaming? But I don't know.
I'm not sure if they're going to or not. And that might even... See, I was going to say, I thought that was tied in with some of the HoloLens stuff that they were doing. But they may have discontinued how they're... Or not discontinued, but might have changed how they're approaching it.
Yeah, but I think, Xbox has been pretty good the last couple of E3s and really focusing on the games. And, they have Gears 4. I think...
Well, yeah, because last time they focused on the system, they got crapped on.
Exactly. And one thing, I think Xbox might be a good place for... Red Dead 2 to be released, because I know if you guys followed a couple months ago, the original Red Dead was on the back compat testing, and so they could say Red Dead 2, the Xbox exclusive, is getting the Red Dead 1 for free, because we know that's already going to be a backwards compatible title, so that might be a good Red Dead place for them. They usually have a surprise or two from a third party, but I think we're gonna it's gonna be Gears and the Halo Wars, and I think a lot of they seem to be moving towards integration with Windows 10, like day and date cross-release, which I don't... It is what it is, but they're starting to push that. So, if hopefully it won't be as bad as Quantum Break was with that PC version, but... but I think it'll
be... the TV show, basically.
Yeah, basically. So...
Wait, MGS4 the movie? Yeah. The, 17-hour movie that you got to watch?
Mm-hmm.
At least with Metal Gear, at least it felt like you played more. Man,
yeah.
Quantum Break, that was a TV show with video game commercials.
Look, 1 minute of the game, play 7 hours of watching something. You're gonna love it.
Yeah.
So another question then with them putting it out then, because the reason they're doing it is because of Sony, and we'll get to Sony's system in a second. But would they really risk not being able to hop onto the hype train of a newer system, an upgraded system, knowing Sony is going to unveil theirs the next night?
I'm still not convinced Sony's going to release it this year because, they don't... they've got the whole VR thing, and the last thing they want to do is start confusing people to the new system with the VR, and, they could very well unveil them both, but it seems like from a marketing perspective it would be good to focus on one thing. But, I think Microsoft just needs to do their own thing, not kind of like what Nintendo does to a certain extent. They're not going to sell more consoles than Sony this generation, so just kind of, do what you need to do and just try to sell software to your installed base and try something next year to really push forward.
Well, with Sony's thing, you got to remember too, though, is that it's supposed to be there for the VR. That's the reason they're doing theirs.
Yeah, and I don't know if you talk about it with Sony, but that VR, I quite don't understand how, so if you have like a regular PS4 box now, is it not going to be as good as, is it going to run like crap on the regular PlayStation 4? So, yeah, I understand if that's the case, if they really need it to push to make it a decent, it's not a slideshow or something, then yeah, they do kind of need to put it out this fall, the new system.
From what I've read, it is a slight upgrade, and it is designed for that. But I'm still thinking they're gonna still let people play it on the old one and whatnot. But they're gonna show, hey, here's a side by side graphic. This is what it looks like on the PS4. This is what it looks on the new one. You can decide what you want for quality.
See, doesn't that defeat the purpose of the consoles though? Because that's one of the big things is you don't have to. For all the people that say or that advocate, build a computer. PC gaming is better. It looks better. And the thing with consoles is you don't have to upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
You always know how good your games are going to look. Once you put out either
Watch Dogs.
once you put out the new PlayStation or the new Xbox, are you now completely negating the argument on going console instead of PC?
Absolutely. I mean, if you buy a new card every couple of years, you buy a 1080, it's going to blow. I'm sure it'll blow away what the Neo or the whatever the Xbox One is called. So Scorpio. So it's just that's why I love playing on consoles, because I got to buy a box and it was good for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And if I have to buy something every 2 years to make it, regardless if it's backwards compatible or not, but to get the best performance, I might as well just get a PC game.
Exactly. And to look at it like this too. Okay, Xbox 360 was out for over 10 years before Xbox One was released. And now they're throwing out some new equipment, saying, hey, this is the new, better, improved Xbox One, really saying, hey, it's the next-gen Xbox in terms, air quote. So if they're going to do that, why not just go the PC route? Because then you're going to be fine there.
Yeah.
Instead of having to shell like $500 each time.
You guys got to remember, you got to go back to the Sega days. I mean, think about what they did there. You had your Sega CD, Sega 32X. You just kept adding.
Oh, the Voltron of video game consoles.
Yes. So they were doing it even back then. They're like, hey, here's the next piece. Oh, hey, here's the next piece. Oh, hey, here's the next piece. And now you can do this even better stuff. But at least it was connected together. Now, yeah, you've got a new system. And right now, if I were one of the two, one of whoever millions of people buying them, I right now would not buy the new PlayStation simply because I don't have the need for it.
Exactly.
With one exception. If they did, just like Eric said, had backward compatibility on the new PlayStation, I would be standing in the store buying it because I would still love to play my PS3, PS2, and PS1 games that I have sitting there doing nothing but collecting dust on the system. That was so great about PS3 is I could still break out the classics and play them without having to pay for an HD version or a DLC version or whatever. Just sometimes you want to break out a classic and throw it in there and go, wow, this was awesome to play. Mm-hmm. But right now, my PS3 went to crap. So really, my PS2 is sitting in my bedroom, and I'm playing Final Fantasy Tactics, but it looks crappy on a big-ass TV. For me to really do this, I'm going to have to go find an old-ass TV to put my PS2 on just to play like I used to. But hey, if they did backward compatibility on the new PlayStation, and then obviously you could, adjust graphics or signals or whatnot, to play on bigger TVs, then great. But
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I heard through the grapevine or through whatever the internet channels that PlayStation does not plan on doing anything more than just doing a few upgrades, and then that was it.
That's pretty much the same for both them and Microsoft. It's literally a GPU upgrade, and that's about it. It's more along the lines of being able to run VR, and that's why they're doing it. Yeah. And this is going to be the only upgrade they do until they decide if they're going to start research and development and all that stuff for the next generation of consoles.
So. Why can't they be like Windows and say, this is it, we're just going to keep upgrading and upgrading you over time?
I think that people, because if they're only doing the GPU, eventually it's going to outpace what the rest of the chipset inside can handle.
Well, then their next thing to do then is allow you to upgrade your PlayStation.
But then once again, why aren't you just getting a PC? Boom, mic drop. So one last question then with the actual Xbox One before we move on to a couple of the games for Microsoft. Are they going to get I don't even want to call it the rights necessarily, but are they going to work out the partnership to have the Oculus Rift? And if they do, is that a selling point on wanting to get one of the upgraded Xbox One, seeing as now you could use it on a PC and your Xbox?
It depends what the guts of the Scorpio are, because it's, even now with the running on a 980 Ti or a 980, PC VR isn't, it's still kind of pixelated and stuff. So, what kind of experience are you going to get? Is it going to be really system seller for them? But and also, can they get enough Rifts to take care of their own pre-orders right now?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and then real quick too. I mean, you're talking about, is it strong enough to do it? Is it worth doing it? Because not only is it strong enough, but you're having to commit to both the new Xbox and the Rift, knowing that the Xbox might not be any better than any PC you could play it on right now, any average PC.
Exactly.
Because the lowest end card you can use the Rift on or with is the 970, I believe it is. If the Xbox One can't play it better than that, what's the incentive to getting the Xbox One?
Mm-hmm.
Might as well just pay to upgrade your computer a little bit. Spend to get another 970 if you already have one. You can put them in SLI. Save up and get one of the new 1080s. Get the 1070. Get a 980 Ti on the cheap when these new cards come out, instead of paying $500 to buy another Xbox, knowing that it's actually going to be obsolete in a year or two also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree.
All right. Let's move on to some games to get this thing going again. I know that this is more Jacob's area. He's our resident Xbox gamer. Even though I know Eric plays it, somewhat too. So we're gonna start with a game we saw 2 years ago, and that is Scalebound. And as we mentioned off camera, I guess you could say, not on audio yet, Beats by Dragon, which is what this trailer was. This came out back in 2014. Interesting trailer. The dragons, dinosaurs, creatures, stuff like that. Knights, swords, bows and arrows. Headphones that work with magic. And we have seen only a little bit of it since, and it was absent from E3 last year. So, first up, does this game make a return this year?
I'm kind of hoping it does. It's been a long time. I've had it sitting there on my dashboard, for my Xbox, waiting for some sort of update saying, hey, we got something going on, any new trailers, new gameplay, I'm thinking it's time around about, because when the original trailer released, besides the Beats by Dragon, a lot of people loved it. And even when they explained it, it's going to be a somewhat linear storyline, linear gameplay. People still enjoyed it. They thought it was kind of a somewhat refreshing concept, with the new graphics processing and everything like that. So I'm thinking it's about time they should probably, throw a little bone to us again, like, hey, here's what we've done in the last couple of years without letting you guys know.
Scalebound, it's still coming.
TBA soon. Tables will be flipped.
Mm-hmm.
So then, the next question is, does this thing have a Beats by Dre partnership? Do we get a pair of headphones when we buy this game?
Right. Yeah, that's the $180 collector's edition.
Does it look interesting enough in this day and age to with all the other games that we've already brought up and a few more coming up? Final Fantasy 15. You've got whatever EA Star Wars game is going to be, the Battlefront games, Mass Effect Andromeda. Like I said, we've still got a few more that we're going to bring up here pretty soon. Does it carry enough with it to make you go, this is what I'm going to buy over some of these other games? Does it look cool enough? Or even real quick, to compare it to a game that Sony's going to have that we're going to talk about here pretty soon, does it look cooler or more interesting than another game with weird creatures, Horizon Zero Dawn?
See, since I don't know if Scalebound's going to be Xbox exclusive, but I know since Horizon Zero Dawn is, it's going to be I think those are going to be two competitors. If they end up being exclusive, then if you're for Xbox, that's where you're going to get it. And for PS4, that's where you're going to get it. But if you have both consoles, I think people are going to go more Horizon Dawn, because they already explained that it's going to be more open world compared to Scalebound, which is going to be more linear.
Yeah, I think also Zero Dawn has a better chance of having a better story and just more fleshed out. It just seems like, I'm a fan of Guerrilla Games, so, the Killzone games weren't the best in story, but I think Scalebound might be more action-y and just more visceral, and I think the other one might be just more of a story, more interactive.
Okay. All right.
Is Zero Dawn going to be multiplayer, or is it solo? Or
Solo.
I think it's
so
so.
far.
Yeah, I want to say that the only thing we know so far is single player.
Yeah.
Because other than the trailer last year, that's all we've seen.
I think they stated that they wanted it to be a solo game because the way multiplayer games have been going, they're being overrun, over-abused, and they wanted a game that would push the limits of the console, for graphics-wise, quality of content, amount of content that is rendered at one point in time, and by doing a multiplayer game, you can't do all that, and you can't get the beauty that some people look for, because I always enjoy a good single-player game, and that's what I always kind of looked at Sony for, was the single-player games mostly, because some of the games aren't that great, but because they tend to have the best storyline, the best quality, things that you want to go back and replay. So, and that's something I think Horizon Zero Dawn is that they're trying to push for, something that you want to go back and replay, an immersive story that you can, kind of envelop yourself with, and get addicted to.
All right, so the other, I shouldn't say the other. One of the other Xbox exclusive games I want to hit on is ReCore, which we saw last year, with interesting mechanics, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The wonderful power supply that could be interchanged in robots and stuff like that.
Yeah, they just, we haven't really heard anything about it since last E3, so hopefully, I'm assuming they're going to have a big blowout of it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
From what I read, I can guess that it's going to have an RPG puzzler kind of element to it. Because it talks about how you're going to be able to take this core and put it into different allies and things like that to activate different abilities and to do certain things to, probably, I guess, beat puzzles and things like that. Even though there hasn't been much released on it, you can hypothesize due to her ability to, survive and try to outsmart what's happening around her, the environment and the enemies she encounters.
Yeah. See, and you're saying that, and I'm picturing Final Fantasy X with the orbs you used and all of the summoning temples,
Mm-hmm.
and usually just kind of taking them and putting them into certain walls. It would activate stuff, and then you go back and grab them and put them other places. I see that being with that core that she uses for the other robots, carrying that around, and as you said, you're going to put it into certain machines, turn them on, certain robots, and use them, just to solve puzzles. And in the meantime, then use that grappling hook and the gun of hers to demolish everything else. Because and I think Eric brought it up. We haven't seen much of it since E3 last year.
nothing, yeah.
Yeah, and they came out, they talked about that trailer, and they hyped it up big that it was going to be a big exclusive, and then to have nothing for the next year is kind of odd. So, do we get a full-fledged gameplay trailer this year? Because that was all CG. We didn't see any gameplay whatsoever.
If we don't see a gameplay trailer, I'm assuming that it's either being reworked or it's went the way of what's that other Phantom Dust game that they were working on a few years ago. Yeah, the remake of the old Xbox, original Xbox game.
Yeah, that got canceled earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, see, and that's what I worry about when they do some of these newer exclusive IPs, is especially when it's only for one studio, or not one studio, but for one system, you don't have the same avenues to get hype. Because there's a lot of people that don't watch the opposing consoles press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people that didn't even see ReCore. And for it to be, brand new, and people are like, okay, it looks all right, but you didn't show me anything, it loses steam really quick. The only people that care are the people that were really interested at that point. Because like Scalebound, which remember it was 2 years ago, people forgot about it at this past E3. And I'm worried that, if they don't bring it back again, it's going to go down the same route. People are going to be like, what the hell was ReCore? If it's not at this E3 and it's at next year's, people are going to go, did you see the new game they debuted this year? And it's like, no, people have known about that for 2 years now. They just haven't done shit with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's another game, and that we can only go so far with speculation because they don't put anything out on it. Not even, a whole lot of game info is out there. I think you go to the website and you get a paragraph and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yep.
and I think that half is literally telling you who made the game.
I think, hold on, to give you the exact detail, it states about how you're one of the last humans surviving, and you're just trying to survive in a world with a bunch of robots that are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
That's a synopsis of one of those paragraphs.
You can't save mankind alone.
There you go.
Yeah, see? Look, it even comes with an extra sentence. Those 5 words make it. So, all right, last Xbox game to hit will be Gears of War 4, which just finished off their multiplayer beta, but single player has been very scarce this whole time. It comes out this year, so I would think we have to see gameplay. We have to see like full-fledged single-player gameplay, story, character development, stuff like that in a trailer or a segment this year at the press conference, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I mean, they focused the multiplayer beta. So I think they'll really focus this time on single player and show, I think he's Marcus Phoenix's son and, a different kind of enemy. So yeah, I think they'll really hone in on that to blow that out because I think it's coming out in November. So that's one of their big games. So hopefully we'll see the single player, see if there's any new mechanics or anything.
Did either of you play the multiplayer beta?
I did.
I did.
Okay. Is there enough change to the gameplay mechanics to even write home about yet?
No, not in my opinion.
Yeah, not really. Like the only they've changed just like it's not big changes. Like they changed a few things, like added a couple weapons and stuff like that, and how the multiplayer flows. But it's not big enough to be like this is an expansive new multiplayer. This is a new Gears engine that is gonna rock your world.
Mm-hmm.
It was only like small changes.
There's nothing in there that goes, this being in single player is going to change. How I'm not even just thinking of multiplayer. I'm thinking if they're like, okay, here's a new mechanic to our game design. This is how our gameplay mechanics. This is how this part of combat works now. Is there anything in there to make you go, awesome? That's going to add a ton to Gears of War 4.
Not from my.
Tell you the truth, not from what I've seen. The best things they got now is the ability to grab a person who's on the opposite side of the ledge and bring him over, which will act like a stun. Like if you remember in Gears 3, how you could a roadie run over a ledge or over a cover and kick the other guy. They added that to where you can grab the other guy now and act like a stun, or you can actually run into the cover and kick over it with easier than you would back in, say, Gears 3, where you're trying to cover mount a guy.
Okay. Well, and since, and I'm not trying to say here that the Gears games don't have a story. They have a story, but that's not what a lot of people play them for.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's nothing new, would just a new story be enough to even have you guys wanting to go pick up something like Gears of War 4 on day one?
I think one of the staples of the Gear series is Horde mode, which they didn't have in the beta. So if they evolve that Horde mode into something more, then that would really make me want to go check out the multiplayer more than I would otherwise, because that's kind of like their thing is Horde mode. So we'll see about that, how they do Horde mode.
Today, to say day one would probably, it's just because it's a Gears franchise, and Gears franchise has always been good about just blowing stuff up, go mass slaughter a ton of people. To say day one release, it's dependent. Like, I wouldn't get it day one personally, unless like a bunch of people are like, oh my god, get it day one so we can all play together. It's questionable because, the story is that it's 25 years after everything happened in Gears 1, or Gears 3, and it's on the same planet Sarah. It's just only things have adapted now and changed. And so instead of, having to deal with emulsion, you're dealing with like solar storms and new and evolved enemies. So if they can promote the story side of Gears of War 4 like really well, then yeah, day one. If not, I'd wait.
So if they kept up the same pacing and style of storytelling that they had in the first three, would that even be enough to sell it, though? Because like I said, it's not like it's a bad story, and it has some good moments, everything with Dom and whatnot. But is that enough to really sell a new Gears game? Especially when a lot of people, I think, thought that Gears of War 3 was the last one, and just be like, nope, boom, we're in the future, and here you go, brand new story. But if they didn't add anything truly to it, with the way they tell their story, is that even enough? That's where my issue comes. From
that point of look, no, it wouldn't be enough. They're going to have to add a fresh spin to it that's going to really attract people. Because, like you said, with Gears 3, you thought that was the end. You thought everything was going to be kosher, And now they're just kind of throwing you into the same world, but later, and like all new things are happening. So they're going to have to really amp it up.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get it day one. It's just not on my top list. Yeah, like, oh my god, Gears of War's got to have.
Yeah, because to me that sounds like a Hollywood cash grab. When they're like, boom, we have a sequel. We know you love this one, and we know we told you we were done, but boom, here's a sequel. Here's Saw 7.
Well, especially after the mishap that happened with Gears of War Judgment, being a prequel game to Gears 3.
Yeah.
And how bad it was. like I played through the whole game, you know, and I was not as enthralled as I was with Gears 3 or any other predecessors to it.